Mostly one shots, a lot of TV appearances. I think his first one was when he was on Webster. I guess back when it was cool and in Hollywood, when it was neat to, for rich people to adopt small black kids. But I guess that's still kind of going on now, isn't it? Yeah. He was a football player on a TV show called First and 10, which I remember vaguely, but it was, First and 10. Spent a lot of time on WWE. He's been on an animated series called Fish Hooks as Mr. Muscles. And then, in 2015, he kind of really moved full time into film. But he will always be known as D-Bo from Friday. So, I'll just leave it at that. When it comes to character arcs, though, there's only one real character who you have to kind of follow in this one as far as an arc goes, and that's Ed Burns, which disappointingly stays flat, I mean, why? It's because he's a con man. I mean, you get a small glimpse into who he is and why he's doing what he's doing and all of his beliefs and some of his own purposefully self-imposed rules. But, he's pretty much the same guy in the beginning of the movie that he is at the end. And the dialogue that's used in the movie is sharp. I mean, razor sharp, almost too sharp sometimes, almost to the point where it's kind of hard to believe some of the things that they're saying. The only time their dialogue to me kind of like really seemed authentic was when they were running a scam. Other times when their interaction with each other, I don't say it just seemed forced, but it really seemed scripted. I mean, the comebacks were just well too crafted, way too slick for the average brain, snappy, and they were funny. And other times they were just kind of cliche. Now, as far as what this movie is about, I thought that the major conflict in this one was kind of human versus human. It was like Jake versus the world. You have a guy who's a con man, and what does a con man do? It's him versus the entire world. Everyone is somebody or a potential opportunity for money. So he's always trying to look for the angles. He's only out for himself. And a lot of this movie really centers around the conflict between Jake and the King, which is basically Dustin Hoffman. He owes money, has to pay it back, doesn't really want to. When it comes to the plot type, delving into old Save the Cat ideas, I thought this one was kind of like a dude with a problem. I mean, I wouldn't really classify Jake as an ordinary person. He does have the gift of charm and charisma and can play almost anybody. And even though these are really extremely circumstances, the people that he is coming up against, he has the ability to overcome. All right, he just does, because that's just the way the movie's crafted. But if you do this kind of line of work, eventually you're going to run into somebody who might be too big for you to overcome. So that's where it's kind of like it's a dude with a problem. Dustin Hoffman represents that person, And the thing about Dustin is that he really doesn't come off as a really mean kind of bad guy. He's kind of like these new wave gangsters who think it's, a lot more fun to be cheeky than it is to be intimidating. It's almost like, when you see him as the gangster role, it's kind of hard to believe it. That's one of those things you get to kind of suspend your disbelief on. As far as the theme, I thought there were a couple of them in here, redemption, justice, and friendship. They're all workable themes in this story. I thought redemption and justice was for one of their friends who they believe was unjustly wrong. And the friendship piece is how all the guys in this movie seem to follow him blindly. It's like Jake is like this Pied Piper, and whatever scheme he cooks up, they follow him blindly and they do exactly what they are supposed to do. Personally, if it was me, I would have taken my cut of the money and split. But hey, I'm a little bit of a different cat. Structure of the movie, it's perfectly balanced. All right. The hook is when, the money's being wrongfully taken. The conflict is initiated in the second act where you're trying to figure out who they owe the money to. At the midpoint, a lot of the complications arise as far as trying to get the money. And then, of course, in the third act, it surrounds the securing of the cash. It's trying to find the money. Then when you get the money, and then how do you, taking the money, but then it's like, how do you actually get the money? Now, this one was directed by James Foley. He made his bones early doing a bunch of Madonna videos, Graduated to TV shows, then kind of got into film, most notably House of Cards and Billions. Film-wise, he was responsible for doing Glengarry Glen Ross, 50 Shades Darker, and 50 Shades Freed. He also did Perfect Stranger with Halle Berry and Bruce Willis. Stylistically, I thought the transitions from scene to scene was actually pretty slick. Some of the characters were silhouetted against these colorful backgrounds. The outfits were neat. I mean, they were perfectly done, and I thought they really kind of reflected the personality of each character, kind of like this 80s noir kind of style to it. As far as the camera angles, they were used to bring intensity to certain scenes. A couple of them kind of give you that old school like Batman kind of thing where the camera's off at like a weird angle, but it's done so that you can look, at a particular person or at a particular symbol or event as the movie goes along. And slow motion and zoom ins I thought were effectively used to kind of highlight different plot points within the story. What worked, it's a cute story. It's an enjoyable, really, really enjoyable caper movie that kind of keeps you guessing about what's going to happen all the way to the very end. Where it fell short is that there were times where I thought it just seemed a little bit contrived. Like everything just seemed a little bit too perfect. Overall, it's rated R, and that's because of violence, language, and there is one love scene that was silhouetted. As far as the Aristotle Index, the whole film is a likely impossibility. So, you can't measure it. You got to kind of throw that out. What your job is to do is to suspend your disbelief and just believe that the con would work, because if one thing goes wrong, the con doesn't work. So you have to believe that it's just perfect and the con is going to work as it needs to work. Definitely enjoyable. As far as the IMDb rating, it got a 6.7. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a solid 69, and the audience gave it a strong 70. But not, they really weren't in love with it. I think they just kind of enjoyed it because of the people who were in it and the way it was kind of shot and stylistically done. As far as the cinnamon and cocktails rating, I gave it a good 3.5. It fits. The film runs a tight 98 minutes, so this is definitely perfect if you want to kind of get like a double feature in one night. Burns is smooth and in control. Hoffman is a joy. Garcia is quirky. Giamatti is a strong anchor, and Wise is lovely and fierce. It was really a lot of fun seeing so many good actors in this particular one playing their roles perfectly, just like a good con. A whiskey highball is the drink of choice for this particular movie. Now, a whiskey highball is part of the highball cocktail family. Some of the more famous ones are like a gin and tonic, a vodka tonic, or a vodka cranberry. And the initial idea behind the whiskey highball was Scotch whiskey with soda water. And you may have heard people call out, let me get a Scotch and soda. So the ingredients that you need for a whiskey highball are really simple. You need like 2 ounces of whiskey, whether it's bourbon or rye or Scotch. And you need roughly about 4 ounces of soda water. You could also go with ginger ale or ginger beer just to kind of fill it up, along with the ice. Add a little bit of lemon, like a lemon wedge, and then you go ahead and garnish. Now, the reason, I came up with this particular drink, I started thinking to myself as I'm watching the movie, what it must have been like, to be one of the characters and kind of like hang around and vibe off of Ed Burns, or should I say Jake. And I started thinking, like, what kind of drink would this guy order if he were out at like a bar? Definitely something strong, something smooth, something easy to say quickly so you could immediately turn your attention to all the people in the room. Because if there is one attractive quality that men and women both appreciate, it's confidence. And another episode is in the books. I'll be back in a few days with 2 more great suggestions to help you escape reality and indulge in the fictitious, sometimes based on a true story, world of cinema. And remember, before I go, quick public service announcement. Be careful of who you are watching these movies with and who you're drinking with. Because honestly, we are always only one drink away from telling people what we really and truly think. Until next time, stay safe and please always drink responsibly.